So the newest numbers that we have today are from the Labor Department. Every week they tell us initial unemployment claims, the new number of people that are applying for jobless claims. And that helps people get a basic idea of sort of where the labor market is, if it's getting worse, if it's getting better. So this week, the cases went up to 861,000. But the numbers are even worse than that, because when you add in another almost 500,000 people using emergency unemployment benefits, it actually brings the number to 1.4 million. So there's a whole lot of people that are still getting unemployment. And again, this is not the total number of people. This is the number of initial claims in the past week. So it's a pretty significant number. So when we look at the numbers of the initial claims, a bit of context, the worst week we ever saw ever in history was less than 700,000, and this week was 861,000. It has been at record levels for 48 weeks. We've never seen this kind of activity ever. That said, it's better than it was at the beginning. At the beginning of the pandemic, the very first couple of weeks, we were seeing claims in 3-6 million level, which were also unprecedented record-breaking levels. And they slowly settled down to about 1 million through the summer. And they've been hovering at just above and below 800,000 since then, dipping a little bit around in the lead up to Thanksgiving, but there's been a little bit of a surge recently. So if you're looking at the big picture, we haven't seen a significant change in the number of people that are looking for new benefits really since August. So it shows that we still have a long way to go. So when we're looking at unemployment numbers and sort of the figures that are coming out from the Labor Department, we're seeing that the unemployment rate last month was 6.3%, but it was more concentrated among certain demographics. It was 8.6% for Hispanics and 9.2% for Black people. So we know that those communities are a lot more affected. Now, when it comes to the question of women, the numbers are a little trickier because the unemployment rate was actually the same for men and women. The bigger problem is that the unemployment rate only counts people that are sort of looking for work and are considered a part of the labor market. What we're seeing with women is that huge numbers of women are actually just dropping out of the labor force altogether. So they're not even counted in these unemployment numbers. And the reason that that's happening is that a lot of times family responsibilities tend to fall more on women. We have a gender pay gap in this country, which means that if you have sort of a traditional household with a man and a woman and some children, the man's probably going to be earning more, which means that if one of them needs to take care of kids who are doing homeschooling, it makes more economic sense for the woman to do that than the man. And there's still just sort of, the traditional family roles is that women often end up taking more of that responsibility anyway. So it's really tied into this question about schools. The other thing that's relevant here is that outside of sort of this question of how it's hitting home life, there's also just how the pandemic has affected the economy specifically. So the biggest industries that have been hit are things that are like hospitality industries, service industries, and women tend to be really overrepresented in those industries, which means that the pandemic specifically and the way that it hit our economy hit sectors where more women are employed, so more women have actually lost access to their jobs, which is really unusual. If you look at the last recession, it was just the opposite. That was called the men's recession because so many men were seeing unemployment, and here it's just the opposite. So you're starting to see some real attention get paid to that in Congress and the administration. Whenever there is a recession in general, and certainly a recession of this magnitude, economists say that it's not just a matter of bouncing back to the way things are before. The experience of the recession and the way that it affects the economy changes the economy. So the economy is going to look different on the other side, even when it's, quote, recovered. the post-pandemic economy isn't going to look exactly like the pre-pandemic economy. And that might be for a bunch of reasons. It might be that suddenly a lot of people learned how to use video software and how to work from home. It might be that companies are moving their offices out of downtown areas or reducing their office space to let people work from home more. It might be that people have moved to different places because suddenly they put a greater premium on having more space at home. So the country and the economy may look pretty different on the other end, and that means there are going to be different kinds of jobs on the other side as well. I know there's some reports out there that are estimating that it's a really significant amount. The other thing to keep in mind is just that even in the unemployment data that we have already, we're seeing that there are about 40%, which is a huge amount of the unemployed, are people that have been out of work for more than 27 weeks. They're considered long-term unemployed. And people who are unemployed for that period of time traditionally are thought of as starting to maybe lose a little bit of skill, maybe lose some of their practice, maybe it's going to be harder for them to integrate back into the job market because they've been out for so long. So that's another thing that's affecting sort of who is going to be doing what on the other side of this.